Hola a todos, mucho gusto en conocerlos. Yo soy Amardeep, tengo 30 años, soy de Inglaterra y soy estudiante de doctorado. Y hoy quiero compartir con ustedes un poco de mis experiencias con BaseLang. BaseLang es un herramienta para aprender español y hasta ahora me sirvió muy bien y quiero explicar a ustedes por qué. Okay, guys, so that's about the extent of my Spanish so far. So, my name is Amarip, I'm from England, and I've been with BaseLang now for about 2 months, and I've been learning Spanish in total since March, so for around 10 months now. And I just wanted to give you a bit of a review of my experiences so far to date. I would say so far I've really enjoyed it. I'm going to just run through a few of the pros that I've found, as well as some of the cons that I've had as well. So I've been very lucky. I've had a lot of free time. In the 2 months, I've managed to have about 90 hours so far of classes with about 60 different teachers. And I would say that it's definitely worth it so long as it's within your budget. So you need about $150 a month, and so long as you have enough time to make it worthwhile. I would think that you need around at least 4 hours a week of commitment towards Spanish classes. That depends. If you were paying around $10 for a private class, that means you're doing 4 hours a week would be about 16 hours a month, would be about $160 a month, so that would break you even. But ideally you wouldn't be doing more than that. But what I'll do is I'll just begin. So some of the pros. So I think with BaseLang, it's as close as you can get to actually being in a country itself, and I think real life immersion is probably the number one best way to be learning a language. With BaseLang, you sit in your own home and you're speaking to local people from Latin American countries. So it's as close as possible to replicating that experience, which is immensely valuable. It's also insanely cost effective. So long as you can fit in the hours, so you can literally do as many hours as you want, but you still just pay that one fixed price. It can also be super fun. Just to give you an example, a few days ago I had a class where I was asked to write a letter to Santa Claus. Now I wasn't expecting that, and I had to think back to when I was a kid and what I would want, and I got to practice things like using the subjunctive, and it ended up being a really fun lesson. And a lot of the lessons that I go into, I literally don't know what's going to happen in the class, and there's an element of kind of excitement and not knowing in the. And also, when you're using BaseLang, it really, I think, brings Spanish to life because you're dealing with real people who have real emotions. So it's not as robotic as if you're using an app like Duolingo or something like that, or if you're using a website or even a book. It just feels a lot more engaging to me. You can also make friendships with people as well, and you can talk about things just like you would talk about with your friends in your own countries. The only difference is you're doing it in Spanish, and you're actually learning as you're having those fun conversations. I think as well during lockdown, with all this crazy stuff that's been happening, this is a great thing to be doing. You're kind of using your time in a good way. I think we're helping people from South America as well by doing this. One of the other main advantages recently is that you have access now, if you do the real world program, to the Delhi program as well for free, which is actually a huge deal because there's a whole different set of materials in Delhi. Which cover like reading lessons, writing lessons, auditory lessons as well as oral practice lessons. If you want to take the Delhi exam in the future, these classes can prepare you for that, and it's completely free, whereas before that was a separate program that you pay money for. And they have a separate set of teachers as well that are especially trained to be able to deliver these Delhi classes to you. One other thing that I really like is that there are literally so many teachers in BaseLang. There are at least, I think, over 150 teachers. So there's a very good chance that at some point you're going to start finding teachers that you really connect with. It might take a bit of time at the beginning, but I think everyone will get there eventually. And eventually what happens is you kind of get your own team. So maybe you have a set of, 5 or 6 teachers that you work really well with, and they work well with you. So it's a win-win for everyone. The other thing that I like as well is the classes are super flexible. So if you don't know what your schedule is going to be, you can cancel your class, for example, at the last minute. There's no problem with doing that. You can also book onto classes at the last minute as well, so long as there's availability, which sometimes there isn't. But It means, for example, if you're just sitting around and you find yourself with some, I don't know, a free couple of hours or 1 hour or even half an hour, suddenly you might find yourself in a class within 2 minutes, which is really cool. The other thing for me has been the help system with the BaseLang staff has been incredible. I've had a lot of questions, even I've asked them sometimes how I should be using the material, as well as some specific questions about the teachers or even Zoom itself, and I always get responses within less than 5 minutes, and they're usually very, very helpful. I think as well, BaseLang is something that will work for people at all levels. They've got material that you can use that will go through all the way from beginner level to all the way through to advanced, and it will cover everything from grammar, as well as they have a ton of electives which have basically fun things to talk about as well. Just to cover off the last pro, I think everyone gets a little bit nervous before they go into a class. I know I do, but after a class I always feel a lot more positive, and I think the teachers are basically there to help us, to encourage. They're there to better our Spanish. That's kind of what their job is, right? So I've never once felt bad or anything like that, for being a bit nervous. They've always encouraged me, made me feel more positive, and as a result, I think I'm able to learn Spanish much, much more quickly than I would otherwise. Okay, just to run through maybe some of the things that I don't like so much after 2 months is, especially lately, it's been a bit harder to get classes. The availability has been a lot less, but I think because there have been many more new students coming in. As a result, I think unfortunately this means that to guarantee classes, you have to book them in advance, which means usually about 4 or 5 days before. And the system usually updates at 7 p.m. UK time, which means you need to be ready at that time in order to make sure you have classes then for the next, 4 or 5 days in the future reserved just for you. You can always cancel them if you can't make them. But I do know that BaseLang is working on this, that they are getting more teachers recruited, so I think maybe it won't be a problem in a few more weeks' time. As well, another thing is sometimes I find the material itself, the BaseLang curriculum, to be a bit dry. I mean, it can't really compare to, say, a flashy app with lots of flashing colours and games, something like Duolingo or even Spanish Ticked. BaseLang is not really designed for that, but I think on the flip side is we have the advantage of having live teachers in front of us, so that they kind of bring the material to life. Like, I am often, doing a class which seems really dull, but then depending on the teacher, we might start speaking about real life examples. One class I was learning about the word, for example, hammer, which is a very dull thing to do, but then we're asking when have you used a hammer in your life, and we're thinking of examples, and we're doing a bit of back and forth, and that really reinforces the actual learning process. The other thing I would say is as well, occasionally there have been internet problems, especially with the teachers from Venezuela. Sometimes you just need to be a bit patient with this, and occasionally classes could get cancelled because the other teacher can't make it or because they have internet problems. BaseLang do try and find replacements, but sometimes they can't, and it's just kind of one of the problems that's going on at the moment. And as well, for me personally, I feel the need to supplement my learning with other things. I think BaseLang is great, it's got massive resources, but for me alone, it isn't enough. I kind of need a little bit more. For example, listening to songs in Spanish, or watching movies, or using a bit of other apps as well. And often I get a lot of recommendations from the teachers that they know a lot of Spanish learning websites. Sometimes they work through them in the class with you as well. So just to kind of give you a heads up that maybe, if you put all your eggs in one basket, maybe it won't answer everything for you, and you might still need to look for other things to kind of get your overall progress up. Very rarely as well, once or twice I think I did have bad experiences with the teacher where I was in a class where I really wished that I wasn't there, basically, and it doesn't happen very often, but it kind of is what it is, and it's very easy to get around. All you just do is just make sure you don't book a class with that teacher again. It might just be that you just don't click, and there's so many other teachers that it's not really an issue. The final thing I would say is you basically need to be your own boss. When you're in BaseLang, it works a bit like a sandbox, so you're in control of what you're going to do in a class, which if you're not someone who likes to make decisions, someone like me for example, it's a bit challenging because you might end up having kind of wishy-washy classes which more often than not just become conversational, which are great as well. But if you do specifically want to learn about specific things, then it's up to you to work out what they are before you go into the class. So it's a bit different, for example, to learning in a university or a school or something where you'll be told what to do and you're following a curriculum, but you're being told by the teacher what you're doing today. But I mean, on the flip side, you do have a curriculum in BaseLang, so you can always just say to the teacher, okay, this is the lesson I'm on, I just want to carry on from the last lesson I was doing, and there you go, you just kind of continue step by step. So in summary, I would just say that I feel like I've really upped my game, my Spanish game, by using BaseLang, and often without even realizing it. It kind of sinks in more. For example, I have a friend from Chile who taught me at the beginning back in March, and she can see my progress, I think, a lot better than I can. And she said to me just the other day that she thinks I'm a lot more fluid and a lot more confident, and I think 100% that is down to having all this conversation practice with the BaseLang teachers, which personally I can't really get anywhere else by being in England. Also as well, I've really enjoyed just the cultural sharing that we've done. It feels a bit like I'm travelling even though I'm in England. I've been meeting people from so many different Latin American countries and learning about their customs and, you know, just what they do in their day-to-day life. So it's been super interesting. Just to close, I would highly recommend BaseLang. I think at the very least it's worth a shot just to try it out. The free trial, I think there's a trial for a week, which is only $1. So, you know, you can just see what it's like, see what you think, and if you want to carry on, then you can do the paid version where you do a full month. Yeah, so okay, eso es todo. Espero que este video les ha ayudado mucho, y if you have any questions at all, feel free to pop them below. I'll try and answer as quick as I can. And just to say that BaseLang do give me a free month for doing this review for them, but I'm not in any way like affiliated with BaseLang other than that. I'm just a normal person, and they don't check the quality of this video or anything like that. So I've tried to make it as balanced as I can. I've given you literally as honest review as I can. And yeah, I hope you'll have a lot of success in your Spanish learning journeys. Thank you. Muchas gracias.